What if everything you thought you knew about your family was a lie? Imagine waking up one day, seeing your name splashed across the headlines, only to realize the foundation of your life, the very man you called father, is not who you believed. For Prince Harry, that nightmare became reality. DNA results have reportedly confirmed what whispers in the shadows have hinted for decades. King Charles is not Harry's biological father, and the truth doesn't stop there. The man who raised him, who defined the path he was destined to follow, might not share a single drop of his blood. Instead, Harry's real father is said to be James Hewitt, the former cavalry officer whose name has long haunted tabloid pages and royal gossip columns. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Think about it. For decades, Harry navigated a world of protocol, palace ceremonies, and public expectation under the belief that he was the son of a king. Every handshake, every photograph, every word of advice from Charles shaped who he was. And then, in one moment, the rules changed. DNA doesn't lie. Facts are facts. But emotions? They are messy, tangled, impossible to ignore. What does it mean for a life carefully scripted by royalty, media, and public perception? And more importantly, how does a man reconcile love for the father who raised him with the shocking revelation of betrayal his heart and mind cannot ignore? The palace, sources say, is in uproar. Confidential meetings, whispered conversations, and frantic legal discussions have taken place behind closed doors. Advisors are scrambling. The media is already circling, sensing a story that will eclipse every scandal of the last decade. But none of that compares to what this means for Harry personally. Identity, legacy, and family are suddenly under the microscope. Questions explode. Who is he really? Who does he belong to? And perhaps most devastatingly, what does this mean for his own children, Archie and Lilibet, who are caught in the middle of a revelation that redefines their family tree before they even understand it? And yet, amid the turmoil, a deeper story emerges. This is more than a DNA bombshell. It's about choice, about agency, about a man deciding to take control of his narrative in a world that has always tried to define it for him. How do you break ties with a father who is legally yours, but genetically is not? How do you confront a monarchy built on centuries of tradition when your very identity is called into question? These aren't just headlines. They are human truths wrapped in royal drama. And for Harry, the stakes couldn't be higher. The world thinks it knows him. But do we really? By the end of this story, you will see how one test changed everything. How secrets kept for decades came crashing into daylight, forcing decisions that will shake not just a family, but a nation. And yet, as shocking as the DNA confirmation is, the most dramatic part of this saga has yet to unfold. Because knowing who your real father is doesn't prepare you for what you do next. And that next move? It's going to shock the world. What happens when the foundation of your life suddenly crumbles beneath you? That's exactly what Prince Harry faced the moment the results arrived. A single envelope, discreet, unassuming, yet carrying the kind of revelation that could topple a monarchy. Inside, the DNA report confirmed what whispers had hinted at for decades. King Charles is not Harry's biological father. The man whose face appeared on coins, whose words shaped protocols, whose very existence was tied to Harry's destiny. He wasn't really his father. Imagine being in Harry's shoes. Every family photograph, every private conversation, every public smile now takes on a new meaning. Was it love, loyalty, or obligation that had defined their relationship? The palace, as always, functions in silence and secrecy, but even the quiet corridors of power couldn't contain the shock of this revelation. Advisors whispered. Legal teams mobilized. The media, though still unaware of the full story, could almost sense the tremor before the quake. Harry's mind raced. Questions he had never dared to ask now demanded answers. Was the affection he felt real? Or a carefully constructed illusion designed to keep him in line? For decades, rumors had swirled about James Hewitt, the former cavalry officer who had grown close to Diana during tumultuous years. The tabloids hinted, the gossip columns speculated, yet Harry had never known the truth until now. And the truth, when it arrived, was a tidal wave. It didn't just shock, it shattered. Consider the emotional paradox. Love and betrayal intertwined so tightly that even the act of grieving is complicated. Harry had been raised to respect his father, to admire him, even to follow his example. Yet that same figure had been biologically absent from his life, a ghost of paternity lurking in the DNA strands. How do you reconcile loyalty to a parent you love with the undeniable reality of science? How do you face a world that defines you by a bloodline you don't belong to? And the timing couldn't be worse. Every moment Harry spends in public now is under scrutiny. Each wave, each smile, each appearance carries a shadow. He knows the press will pounce, the tabloids will run wild, and the public will demand answers he may not be ready to give. Even within the family, eyes watch, whispers echo, alliances shift. One can almost hear the silence of the palace walls, holding its breath as one of its own confronts the impossible. Direct questions to the audience hit here. What would you do if a single test revealed a lie so profound it changed everything? Could you forgive? Could you adapt? Or would you sever every tie to protect your own sense of self? Harry faced exactly that decision, an impossible choice with stakes far beyond any ordinary family drama. Yet amid the shock, one thought persisted, haunting, relentless. If Charles was not his father, then who was? The whispers, the rumors, the secretive glances of those who knew too much, they all pointed to one name, James Hewitt. And as Harry read the final line of the DNA report, the reality settled in. His life, his identity, his legacy, it was about to be rewritten from the ground up. One name, one shadow that had lingered in the background of royal gossip for decades. James Hewitt. For years, whispers had swirled around this former cavalry officer, the man who had been close to Princess Diana during the most turbulent chapters of her life. Rumors, innuendos, and late-night tabloid stories hinted at a bond that went far beyond friendship. Yet for Harry, it was always just that, rumor. Until now, the DNA confirmation transformed speculation into undeniable truth. Suddenly, the man whose very presence had been a subject of hushed conversations in the press became central to Harry's identity. The prince had spent a lifetime measured against the standards of a father he thought he had, the monarchy he was born into, and a media narrative that painted him one way. Now, all of it was being rewritten. Imagine the emotional whirlwind. Harry, a man accustomed to public scrutiny, found himself confronting a private storm. Every childhood memory, every lesson in responsibility and duty, every conversation with Charles, took on a new meaning or a new doubt. Was love for a parent diminished when biology contradicts belief? Could he reconcile the man who raised him with the truth that he was not his father? The questions alone were enough to fracture even the strongest sense of self. The palace, sources suggest, was thrown into chaos. Advisors and confidants debated damage control, whispering about public perception and media fallout. But for Harry, the palace drama was secondary. This was about personal identity, about understanding who he really was. James Hewitt, once a figure of rumor, became the undeniable truth of his paternity. The emotional stakes skyrocketed, decades of secrecy, decades of whispered doubt, all converging in one moment of revelation. And the irony was staggering. For years, Harry had defended his family, maintained loyalty, and navigated the complex web of royal protocol. Yet the man he had been defending, the institution he had been serving, was now connected to a lie written in his very DNA. Publicly, he smiled, waved, and fulfilled ceremonial duties. Privately, he grappled with the most profound questions of identity. Who am I if not the son of the king? What legacy am I meant to carry forward? And most painfully, how do I honor my mother's memory in a world where truth is stranger than fiction? Even more dramatic, the media had long suspected, but they never had proof. Now, Harry held that proof in his hands, and with it, a choice emerged. Would he remain silent, maintaining the facade of loyalty and decorum? Or would he confront the truth openly, severing ties with a father who, while loving, was not his own? The tension between duty and self, loyalty and authenticity, became unbearable. Direct question to the audience. If you discovered your entire life was built on a lie, would you confront the truth or protect the past? Harry faced that choice in its rawest, most excruciating form. And as the reality of James Hewitt's place in his life sank in, He realized there could be no middle ground. There could be no compromise. The truth demanded action. And then came the decision that would shock the world. The move Harry made next wasn't just about personal identity. It was a direct challenge to the monarchy, the media, and centuries of expectation. But what exactly did he do? That revelation is what sets the stage for the seismic fallout that would follow, and it's about to get even more explosive. By morning, the palace was already in chaos. Whispers echoed down the gilded hallways, courtiers exchanging anxious glances. Advisors scrambled to draft statements. Legal teams debated implications, and the press, though unaware of the full story, sensed a seismic shift on the horizon. But inside, for Prince Harry, it wasn't about protocol, damage control, or headlines. It was about reclaiming his life. The DNA confirmation had forced Harry to confront the unthinkable. The man he had called father, the king who shaped his destiny, was not his biological parent. James Hewitt, a figure long relegated to rumors and speculation, was his real father. And with that truth came a decision as dramatic as it was inevitable. Harry would sever every tie that had defined his relationship with Charles, the monarchy, and the royal system that had constrained him for decades. Imagine the courage it takes to break from a world built for you before you even knew the rules. Every royal event, every family gathering, every obligation now carried the weight of a lie. Harry had to make a choice: continue living in the shadow of a false narrative or step into the light of his own truth. He chose the latter. The first steps were private but decisive. Legal advisors helped him navigate the delicate process of formally distancing himself from Charles's household, dissolving obligations, and protecting his personal autonomy. He consulted with Confidants and Meghan, weighing the emotional consequences on their children, Archie and Lilibet. Every move was calculated but fueled by raw emotion, anger, grief, betrayal, and a profound need for authenticity. Meanwhile, the palace began to sense the storm. Staff whispered about Harry's private meetings, about documents quietly drafted to secure independence, and about the unprecedented personal statement he intended to make. The world would eventually learn of his choice, but the real drama was happening behind closed doors. A son severing ties with a father he loved but no longer recognized as his own. The emotional stakes couldn't have been higher. Loyalty, duty, and family love collided with the unyielding truth of biology. Harry's decision was not just personal, it was symbolic. It challenged centuries of monarchy, questioned the foundation of inheritance and bloodline, and sent ripples through the media landscape. Social media began to buzz with speculation even before any official announcement, and royal commentators struggled to reconcile what was happening with what they thought they knew. Harry's choice also forced reflection on identity and legacy. Could he still honor the man who raised him while rejecting the false narrative of biology? How could he balance love with truth? And most importantly, what message would he send to his children about the courage to live authentically, even when it disrupts everything you've been told to believe? And then, just when it seemed the storm might settle, Harry made a move that no one anticipated: a public declaration of his autonomy. A step so bold it would shake the monarchy to its core. It wasn't just a personal act, it was a historic one that ensured the world would never view him, or his family, the same way again. Truth has a way of changing everything. For Prince Harry, the DNA revelation was more than a personal shock. It was a tidal wave that reshaped his identity, his family, and the very notion of what it means to belong. The man he had called father, the king who defined his early life, was not his biological parent. Instead, James Hewitt, a figure long whispered about in the tabloids, now stood at the center of his story. And with that truth came action. Harry chose to sever ties, to reclaim his autonomy, and to define his life on his own terms. The fallout was immediate and dramatic. The palace scrambled, advisors whispered frantically, and the media erupted with speculation. Social media lit up with debates, shock, and disbelief. Royal commentators struggled to reconcile centuries of tradition with a revelation that was entirely human, entirely personal, and entirely disruptive. Harry's choice wasn't just about biology. It was about identity, autonomy, and courage. It was a statement to the world that truth matters more than expectation, that personal integrity outweighs public perception, and that family is more than DNA. For Harry's children, the revelation adds a layer of complexity to their own identities. Archie and Lilibet now inherit not just a royal legacy, but a story of courage, of facing uncomfortable truths, and of forging one's own path. Harry's journey is a powerful reminder that even within the rigid structures of royalty, the human experience, love, betrayal, discovery, and self-determination remains paramount. Reflect for a moment. How would you respond if the foundation of your life suddenly shifted? Could you confront the truth, even if it meant breaking bonds, facing public scrutiny, and upsetting an entire system built around you? Harry's story forces us to grapple with these questions, and in doing so, it offers a larger reflection. Our identities are not dictated solely by lineage or expectation. They are defined by the choices we make when confronted with truth. As shocking as the DNA results were, as dramatic as the palace fallout might seem, the lasting message is one of empowerment. Harry didn't just discover who his father was, he discovered who he is. And in that discovery lies a lesson for all of us. Courage, authenticity, and the willingness to face the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, are the greatest acts of liberation. If this story has shocked you, stunned you, or made you question the nature of family, hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts. Would you have the courage to confront a truth that rewrites your life? Harry did. And the world will never be the same.